trying out a new setup this morning. This is my phone, so let's see if this is going to work. Can you guys hear me okay? Razmik, good morning. Trying to set it up where I can see the comments. Oh, Kevin says 5 by 5. Sweet. All right, we got 8 folks on. I know I'm a little early this morning, but testing kind of a new setup, and I wanted to make sure that everything was going to work out okay with the audio, with my phone, because I'm not using my webcam this morning. Okay. Everybody says looks good. Everybody can hear me okay. Well, we got 10 folks on, so without any further ado, let's get started. Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Rich. I'll be your host this morning, and we're going to sip on a little coffee. I'm sipping out of my Andrew Branca Law of Self-Defense mug, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Like I said, my name is Rich Brown, the co-host of the American Warrior Show, co-founder of the American Warrior Society, retired Marine after 23 years, former cop, etc. If you're joining me this morning, I'm very happy to have you here with me. Let me know where you're from. Like, share. If you're a coin member, let me know what coin number you are. I'd really like to know that. If you're not sure what all this coin number stuff is about, let's see. I might have one. These are our coins. And if you become a member of the American Warrior Society, we'll ship one of these to your domicile. They're pretty awesome. These are the ones that are blank on the back. We got these in case a member loses their coins. But if you become a member of the American Warrior Society, your coin will be serialized, and that will be your coin number for the rest of your time with us. And a lot of members identify with their coin numbers. Like, let's see, this morning we've got, let's see, 1334 from San Antonio, 1307, 976. Got 1,231 on this morning. So lots of coin members on this morning. We're up to 15 already. That's pretty awesome. And like and share, you know, if we hit 50, someone will get a Gen 1 tumbler. And I was got to ship one of those to Elkie Monroe. He won a couple of weeks back when we hit, I think, 54. So thanks again to Elkie and all the other folks that are out there sharing Coffee with Rich. Let's talk about this Law of Self-Defense mug, man. Harder to kill, harder to convict. Really big fan of Andrew and all the products he's put out there. You know, I've said it before, myself and a lot of our members that are on this morning, we got a lot of former military guys and cops. You know, in the military we had ROE, rules of engagement. Here as a civilian, you don't have ROE necessarily. But we do have the law of self-defense, and if you run afoul of it, you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, potentially, and a whole lot of money out of your pocket. And if you do lose your case, think about it. You're going to be going off, leaving your family behind to deal with a crushing amount of debt, and it's just not a good way to live. So guys, make sure that you understand the law of self-defense. At a minimum, get Andrew's book. Can't say that enough. There's no financial interest in it for me or Mike whatsoever, but I'm gonna tell you right now, it will keep you safe. As always, you know, I talk to you guys about an article, but before we get into today's article, and it's a really good one, let's see who's on this morning. Sean is on. My daughter Maggie Lewis Brown is on. Mr. Mike Seeklander is on. Razmik, Rudy, Mark. Good morning, Rudy. Good morning, Aaron. Wow, got a whole lot of folks on this morning. Let's talk about the first thing this morning. I apologize for all that stuff on my eyes. It's kind of distracting, so I'll try to keep my head down and be cognizant of that. Let's talk about how the article is How to Be Armed in a Gun-Free Zone. And I wrote this thing years ago, and it reminded me of, and I'll tell you a quick war story. So I was the colonel's driver, this Marine Corps colonel's driver, and I had to pick him up. We were in Israel for like 6 weeks, and I had to pick him up from the Tel Aviv airport. He's flying in from Rome. And me and the sergeant major drove down there, and normally when I went out in Israel, I was armed. In the sedan, I kept a shotgun, And on my person, I kept a concealed Beretta M9, basically like a 92, Beretta 92 model. And so for this trip to Tel Aviv airport, I was instructed, hey man, you know, Corporal Brown, you are not going armed down to the Tel Aviv airport. They have rings of security down there that you really got to be aware of. So don't go down there. And man, we're getting a lot of folks on. 23, my brother Jeff Brown is on. Good morning. Tom is on. American War Society says, morning folks, post your location. Okay, like and share. Back to the story time with Rich Brown. So I'm taking me and the Sergeant Major. We're going to drive down to Tel Aviv airport, and I'm told not to go armed. And that's a long drive from Haifa in the north of Israel down to Tel Aviv. And we were completely unarmed. And when we get inside there, I noticed that as I'm going through the front door of the Tel Aviv airport, I think it's called the Ben Gurion Airport. It's not important. And as I'm going through there, I noticed this bum is asleep on the side. And I looked at the Sergeant Major and I said, yeah, real good security, man. This guy stank. He's laying there on the pavement on some little mat he's got. He's just a homeless guy. Well, we go in and we're hours early because that's the way you are in the Marine Corps. And we're sitting there waiting, and we have lunch. And I'm watching. I see no visible security, nobody. And I see this after sitting there for about an hour or so. I kept noticing the same pilot pulling his luggage with the same stewardess, and they would go by, and I started watching. After a couple hours of being there, I noticed they walked the same routes with the same luggage. And then at some point, the guy who was a homeless man on the outside came in, ordered food, sit down and ate it. And when he ate, his shirt came up and you could see a Browning high power and a set of handcuffs. So the Israelis had their security dialed in, folks. And that's why I didn't go armed. But so let's talk about that. How do you be armed in a gun-free zone? What does it mean to be armed? And remember, just because you're not armed with something doesn't mean you're harmless. And that was a Supreme Court decision that actually said that. So to be armed, really, number one, is a mindset. You got to understand that you can arm yourself in a moment's notice with anything on this desk. You know, I've got all kinds of stuff. I'm armed now. Or I could be armed with knowledge or whatever. So really, it's a mindset, right? You're armed with your mindset. You could have all the kit in the world, just like we saw that guy, Scott Peterson, down in Parkland. You know, he was armed. Wow, we're up with 34 folks on. Good morning to all 34 of you out there watching. Appreciate you. So that guy, Scott Peterson, he was the only one that was armed there at Parkland that day. And just because he had all the right kit on, he didn't do anything with it. So he didn't have the right mindset. So understanding mindset is number one, and having the mindset. Number one, know the law. What can you carry? And if you can carry a tactical pen or something like that, then carry that. If you can carry a flashlight, carry that. If you can carry OC spray, carry that. If you can carry an edged weapon, carry that. If you can have access to improvised weapons while you're there, do that. Let's talk about improvised weapons. When I worked in corrections, we had a little mini riot kickoff in the pod one day, and one guy who had San Quentin tattooed across his stomach, when the riot broke out, he was mopping the floor. This guy went from mopping the floor, snapped the broomstick, and he had a weapon in a nanosecond. This guy was down. And part of that is because he had the mindset. This wasn't his first rodeo. This guy was ready to roll at a second's notice, and he took advantage of what he had in his hands. So improvised weapons. There's probably, if you're in a building and something pops off, there's a janitor's closet. Guess what? There's all kinds of chemicals in there, sprays in there. Broom handles, broomsticks, etc. So you can always get access to improvised weapons. And that's another thing. I was talking to one of our American Warrior Society members, is a London police officer. And he was telling me that I was asking him about that FARB marking gel. It's basically like pepper spray, but there's no noxious chemical that comes out of it. It's just a red viscous marking dye. I said, hey man, is this thing gonna be legal? If I buy someone, I'm over there. And he said, I've never seen it before. He asked a bunch of the other London police officers, have you ever seen this? None of them had ever seen one in the wild. He goes, and honestly, man, I think you'd run afoul of it. I think you'd run afoul of the law if you carried it, because you willfully, intentionally walked out of the house with this marking die to prepare you to defend yourself. And that's how janky the law is over there. So remember, you cannot do that in London. And I'm going to tell you, when that Firearms Act of 1968 in the UK came around, and at first it's like, hey, we just want to protect everybody. We want to keep everybody safe. We're just going to take the dangerous weapons. And then the slow, steady march, 51 years later, here we are, and you can't even carry some marking die to protect yourself from any kind of weapons. Lastly, if you don't have a narwhal tusk like they were, those guys on the London Bridge were forced to use to defend themselves. If you're out walking the streets of the UK and you don't have a 5-foot-long narwhal tusk, well, good luck. But you do always have gravity, and if you see what those guys did to stop the killer, they put him on the ground and immobilized him long enough for some dude with a gun to get there and shoot him in the face. I mean, that's what it came down to. So before I go any further on the article this week that I want you to check out, and all the articles are absolutely free, doesn't cost you anything, to go to AmericanWarriorSociety.com and get a Just the Articles membership, and you can read today's article, How to Be Armed in a Gun-Free Zone, written by yours truly. Let's see who's on here. Josh Salazar, great message. Most victims are already victimized by their own mind. Spot on, sir. Gonna give you a like for that. Gerald D's, man, you're spot on. Gerald D says you're armed with the 6 inches between your ears, and he's absolutely right. Good morning from Ontario, Canada. Good morning, Mark. Happy to have you. Mark talks about weapons of opportunity. Yeah, man, weapons of opportunity are huge. And like I said, if you're walking the streets and you can't find a narwhal tusk laying on the ground ready to go, then maybe you need to take something with you. And lastly, you're armed with training. Like I said, just because I walk into the Smithsonian and they made me throw my knife away one time, true story. I had my knife in my pocket. The alarm goes off, and I'm like, you can't have that in here. Like, I can't? Can you hold on to it for me? And they're like, no. You can go throw it away in the dumpster outside. So I walk out there and I drop it right in the dumpster. Just a cheap $20, $30 knife. I mean, I hated to lose it, but what am I going to do? And I was with a crowd of people, and I walked up to the guy, and I'm like, obviously you don't care about security. You just had me throw that in a dumpster, and you throw that in a trash can right in front of everybody. And he just kind of shrugged. He doesn't care. But my point is, you can't take training away from me. Just because you think you've disarmed me of some silly edged weapon doesn't mean that I'm harmless. And remember, that's what the law says as well. So training. You get to take training with you wherever you go. And speaking of training, check out the training vault. More on that in a moment. But so that's the article, How to Be Armed in a Gun-Free Zone. And thank you to the 38 folks that are joining me live this morning. We're up to 42. Please like, share. I really appreciate all the 40-something folks that are on there. And if we hit 50 and you've liked, shared, or commented, somebody's going to get the Gen 1 tumbler, that old school tumbler that you can't get anymore. I think I've got 3 or 4 left. Okay. Show number 158, one of my favorite shows of all time, is a show we did with Kyle Lamb. And if you're not familiar with Sergeant Major Lamb, Sergeant Major Lamb did, I can't remember how many years, but he was in a special mission unit in the United States Army. You may know him as Delta Force. I don't think he often goes on records as saying that's who he was with, but of course that's who he was with. And it was a phenomenal interview, man. You're definitely going to want to check that out. Like I said, by far and away, one of the best we ever did. And I heard him on our show talk about things I'd never heard him discuss before. Mike was able to pull out some real good nuggets from Kyle, and we're happy to have him. Kyle's a fellow Tennessean. I need to get down there and train with Kyle. And remember, the American Warrior Show, our podcast, absolutely free, doesn't cost you anything to go check out that. Today's gadget. Before I get into today's gadget, let's have a chat here with folks that are on. We're up to 36 viewers. That's pretty doggone good. Sorry if the video's a little choppy this morning. You can always go back and watch it later, and it will not be. All the videos we've done, Coffee with Rich, are free. Wednesday mornings at 6:30, join my partner in crime, Mr. Mike Seeklander. He goes live for you and teaches you some things with handguns. I think Mike's fixing to start a defensive series, if I'm correct on that, right, Mike? And Bob Boston just jumped on. Let's talk about the gadget. I am going to share with you poor man's night vision. That's a headlamp. I'm a big fan of headlamps. Huge fan. And if you're not, you need to be. Because they free up your hands to do something other than holding a flashlight. We're going to talk about three very basic types. This is probably one of the cheapest. You can get these for like $9 out there. And you should have one hanging around the headrest in your truck so that it's always there and accessible anytime you need it. You should have some in your go bag, go kit, whatever. You should have one on your nightstand. You should have one above the refrigerator like I do. These things are super cheap, and you should have them all over your house and anywhere that you're working, so you always have access to this. So let's talk about this. It's cheap. It's got a, let's see here. There's a red lens, white lens, and straight in the center is off. It also swivels down so that if you're working and you need to see what's directly in front of you, it can do that. It's got a battery compartment in the back. The strap will eventually get loose and wear out, and you'll just continually fight that. It's not that big a deal because, again, these things are relatively cheap. It's got one big drawback, and that is it's easily turned on. So when I've ran these in my go bag or my backpack, oftentimes I'll pull it out and the batteries are dead. But that's okay because in our bags we carry backup batteries, but I just hate wasting my backup batteries when these little things get turned on and run the batteries down in your backpack. So not a big fan of that. But overall, these are cheap and they get the job done. The second kind we're going to talk about this morning is this one from Coast. The first one was some Energizer. This is from Coast, and it is a over the head. And it has a pretty significant drawback. See these wires? The battery compartment is in the back, which really balances nicely on your head. And it works well like if you wear a stocking cap, which is what I had this one set up for. I put my stocking cap on, my beanie, and then this goes over it, and it works extremely well. It's got 3 AAA batteries in the back. All the straps are adjustable, but this is probably the third one I've had in the past 5 or 6 years because any kind of rubbing or tension on these exposed external wires, and they start to fray and break and lose contact with the batteries, and it can be a problem. But it does have a pretty significant bright LED light, and it can swivel downward, just like the first one we showed you. Would I recommend this one? Yeah, I probably would. I've had it for 5 or 6 years. It's been a pretty doggone good one. And because the switch is at the bottom, it really doesn't get bumped on. I think maybe once in my backpack it's gotten turned on accidentally. Relatively lightweight, but it's not a perfect solution. This one will set you back about $9 or so. I've seen these in packs of 3 for probably $15 if you want to go crazy and set your whole house up. These are probably about 20 bucks. Now I'm going to show you one I got for my birthday. Your old pal Rich Brown. We're about to hit 50. It looked like we had 49 there for a second. But I had a birthday the other day, and one of my good friends, Fire Captain Dave Frazier, gave me this. He's also an American Warrior Society member. One of my shooting partners, jiu-jitsu training partners, all around great guy. He got me this. It's by Petzl. And this thing is freaking phenomenal. I'm not going to go into a whole lot about it because I'm actually going to do an entire Coffee with Rich where this is the gadget. Probably look for that in about a week or so. But it's 200 lumens. It's ultra light. It's rechargeable. It's waterproof. It's absolutely the cat's meow, baby. It's got a red lens on it. It is a phenomenal piece of gear. Now this guy right here is about $60, which is why I never bought myself. Make sure you like and share. We're almost at 50, and it'd be pretty cool to hit that. 51. Somebody just won a tumbler. Okay, so Petzl, we're going to do an entire show on this coming up here in a couple of weeks after I have an opportunity to fully test it. I don't ever want to talk to you about anything and get excited about it unless I've really used it a lot. So look forward to that. Last thing I want to talk to you about, let's see who's on here. Chad is on. Mr. Wallman, good morning, sir. Up there in New York, I believe. Doug says we'll be investing in headlamps again. Last ones went bad a few years ago on a camping trip. Never replaced them, regretted it. Earlier this week when the deer hunting. Dropped a deer just before dark and ran out of light. I'm trying to field dress it. Found myself wishing I had a headlamp. Absolutely, man. That's exactly true. I'm telling you, have these things on you. They're phenomenal. You know, we didn't used to have them. I remember as a young Marine, we had these big goofy moonbeams. You know, the angle neck flashlights are really heavy. I mean, you could beat somebody to death with it probably, but they weren't good for much else. And then we had mag lights. Those little bitty AA mag lights were awesome. But again, you know what we had for a headlamp? You put this strap around your head and slide your mag light into it, and that thing acted as a headlamp. It got the job done, but it was still pretty clunky. But now we got things like this Petzl. Oh my God, this thing is the Tesla, the Bugatti of headlamps, and I was shocked when Dave gave it to me. Guess what Mr. Mike Seeklander got me for my birthday? Two things, jack and squat. Let's talk about a law. One of the things we've kind of been doing on Coffee with Rich lately is kind of talking about some laws you need to keep your eye on. One of these laws is sponsored by Dr. Roger Marshall, and he's a congressman from Kansas, and it's the Home Defense and Competitive Shooting Act. I want you guys to get out there and read that thing because it is pretty freaking awesome. Pretty awesome. Basically what he's trying to do, one of the tenets of the law is this whole idea of short-barreled rifles, that there's something inherently wicked about a 14-inch barrel. He's like, what are we doing? You know, we've got this silliness going around with the brace on the back of your AR pistol, when really it's a short-barreled rifle. Technically not, but let's not kid ourselves. So he's saying, let's just wipe that clean. Let's call it what it is. Also, man, when we're talking about laws, you know, drinking out of my Law of Self-Defense mug that Andrew was kind enough to send to me, maybe as an early birthday present, not sure. But remember, with the law, I have, you know, raided houses before where we chucked a fragmentation grenade and went in with pointing rifles. And luckily, in that particular instance, nobody was in there. But the Iraqi soldiers had just left and had just cooked up a bunch of chicken, and the chicken parts and rice went flying all over the room when the frag went off. But my point is this. I'm not sitting in prison for throwing a fragmentation grenade in a room full of what we thought were a room full of people, right? I'm not sitting in prison for all the other acts of violence and uses of force I've done, because they were all legal and lawful. They were all reasonable, justified, and necessary when they were done, when they were acted out. So my point to you is this. I don't want you guys and gals on here to get hurt. I don't want you guys and gals on here that use force lawfully to go to prison. Please make sure that you're acting in accordance with the ROE if you're still in the military, your rules of engagement, or the lawful use of force. Please be careful out there, because I'm going to tell you right now, these prosecutors are going after everybody. Like we talked about last week. They're going after a lieutenant for stopping an active shooter. It's absolutely terrifying out there right now to be a law enforcement officer, so please be careful. That's all I got. Anybody got anything for me? I'm sorry if the video feed has been a little janky this morning. I hope it hasn't been too bad. But we hit 50, and somebody's going to be getting a Gen 1 tumbler, and I look forward to sending that to you guys. Anybody have anything for me before I jump off here? And again, I apologize for the video if it's been a little off this morning. We'll try to get better. Unfortunately, there's only so much we can do out here in the country where I live. All right, so let's follow the... Yes, Doug says you're going to talk about flashlight tactics at some point. We will absolutely do that. I will do that before the end of the month. And I know Mike Seeklander has done it on his show before. Matter of fact, let's talk about it right now. In the training vault, if you're a member of the American Warrior Society, you have access to the training vault. That's all of our premium content. It's actually behind the paywall. You're going to have to become a member of the American Warrior Society to get access to that. And we do a 14-day free trial. It doesn't cost you anything. But we actually have I found 8 low light fight videos on there. So if you want to get ready for the low light fight, if you want to know how to use your flashlight and your handgun to search your house, if you want to, Mike sits down and talks to you about a whole array of products on there, flashlights and other gadgets. If you want to learn that, you're going to have to check out the training vault. So make sure you do that. Training vault, you can get in there, 14 days, absolutely free, and check all that out, but I will go into that at some point. So great point on that, Doug. Let's talk about what we talked about today. We talked about the article, which was how to be armed in a gun-free zone. Starts with their mindset, understanding the law, understanding what weapons may be available to you. Make sure you have the training because nobody can take the training from you. We talked about show number 158, Kyle Lamb. And then today's gadget was the Poor Man Night Vision Goggles, and that is just plain old headlamps with white light. Lastly, I want you to go check out Dr. Roger Marshall, his new law that he's trying to get passed, the Home Defense and Competitive Shooting Act. Please go check that out. Let's get with our congressman and let him know that we want to see that thing passed so that we can end all this silliness out there. And finally, I talked to you about the training vault, man. The training vault that has all the low light fight videos that we've got on there that Mike has put together for you. You're going to want to check that out. And that's all I got, man. I've kept you on here about 27 minutes. Anybody have anything for me? Good info. I hope the home protection flies. Yeah, I'm with you, Ronald. I hope it flies too. Mike is doing defensive handgun on his Wednesday live shows. You're going to want to check that out on Wednesday mornings at 6:30 Central Time. Not on this page, but over at the Shooting Dash Performance Facebook page. Check that out. What are your thoughts about the Second Amendment sanctuary counties? Yeah, we kind of talked about that last week, Mark, and I believe you were there. I'm really interested to see how that plays out. I can't imagine it being unlawful. I know that people are trying to stop it. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a real good thing. I think one of the things I saw was, and I didn't read into it too much, was there was one sheriff that says, if I have to deputize thousands of people in this county to make sure that they all have the rights to keep firearms in their house, I will do it, or carry firearms or whatever. And I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. So sanctuary counties, it's a damn shame that we have to do that. I mean, are we gonna have sanctuary counties for the Fourth Amendment? So nobody can get illegally searched and seized in those counties? Are we gonna have a First Amendment sanctuary county where it's free speech only in these counties? I mean, we need to fight for this. It's an absolute, I never thought in my lifetime I would see it, but here we go. Doug says he recommendation for AWS podcast interview, the guys from Skill Set Magazine. Doug, as always, when you speak, I listen, and we'll see if we can't get those guys on here. Make a note of that. Anybody else have anything for me before I jump? I want to be respectful of your time. I've kept you on here for almost 30 minutes. Talked about a lot of stuff. I'll give it a few seconds to see if anybody else has anything for me, and if not, I will let you get on with your day. Thank you for joining me with Coffee with Rich. My coffee this morning was absolutely delicious espresso from my Nespresso machine. I want to give a shout out to the DeLonghi folks who build a really amazing product. All right, guys. Scott says, good show, brothers. Nice haircut and beard trim, my beautiful wife, Miss Lisa, says, and she's right. I went and got a haircut and beard trim just for you guys because it was getting pretty out of control. All right, folks, stay safe out there. And remember, the fight is coming. Be ready.